The sales conversation has to be a question-led process and not a talking process. A talking-led process, I meant to say. Now, this is something that I talk about over on the podcast time and time again because it's something that we cannot stress enough, because we have a lot of people who assume that they are not going to be good in sales because they are not good at toasting, they are not good at talking. And you don't have to be good at either to be good at sales. So you don't have to be that outgoing, gregarious, social butterfly type of personality to be good at sales. Because sales is not about toasting and it's not about talking. It's about the questions that you ask. Now, with that in mind, I kind of understand why some folks have been going gaga over Brian Tracy's book, The Psychology of Sales. I've noticed a few people that I follow on Instagram put up rave reviews of the book, and it's one of those perennial classics. I don't know for sure when it was written, but I won't be surprised if it was written in the 80s or maybe in the 90s. So it's a book that is probably 30, 40 years old right now. But this is one of the insights that you're going to get from the book that is not about a toasting or talking process, but sales is more of a question-led process. So the better questions you ask, the better insights you derive, and the more information that you have to come up with a strategy about how to go about concluding the sale. So I'm not going to go into much more detail over this because that is pretty much the gist of what we're going to get hanging out here over on the podcast or on the Instagram handle. That's for those of you who follow me on the gram. So I guess the good news about this idea that the sales conversation has to be question-led and it doesn't have to be toasting-led or talking-led. So I guess the good news is that it's about acquiring a learnable skill, and it's not necessarily about the amount of sheer talent that you have or sheer good looks. So in other words, you can be average height, average looks, you can be downright ugly, but it doesn't matter. If you're willing to hang in there, it's a learnable skill. If you're willing to learn the kinds of questions that you should be asking and the kind of frameworks that you should adopt, then you will be just fine. So it's not about the sheer talent that you have. So of course, for those of you who have the talent and the good looks, then I guess it wouldn't hurt. But at the bottom of it, let's all bear in mind that improving in sales is all about willing to improve in learnable skills. And so because of that, it's something that is open and accessible to all of us. So what is the next practical step that I would advise on the podcast? It would be to seek out this kind of information wherever you can. If you've been listening to this podcast, then by all means keep listening, subscribe to other ones so you can be exposed to different frameworks and different perspectives as well, because the more the merrier. And in my own opinion, I don't think any particular framework is better than the other per se, because it all depends on different contexts, depending on what it is that we sell, the industry that we're in, the personality that we have, things of that nature. But I believe that the best framework is the one that you're actually going to use. So if you're listening to this podcast, you like some of my ideas, you don't like some of my ideas, you listen to other podcasts, you find something that you seem to resonate with, then by all means, start off with that. But the bottom line is all going to be the same. You're going to make progress once you submit to, once you put yourself in the mind frame that this is all about learnable skills and you're looking for the best way to go about acquiring those skills. So just like the folks that have been putting up rave reviews of this very old book, Brian Tracy, The Psychology of Sales, I'd also recommend that if you have access to the book or the audiobook, listen to it. You're going to get a lot from it. There are going to be times when he's clearly talking about a business-to-business context, maybe like he's talking about people in insurance sales or banking or whatever. I don't want you to do the thing that most people do, which is like, oh, this does not relate to me. They're talking about banking, so therefore this thing has nothing to do with being a wedding photographer. Or right now they're talking about insurance, and so this has nothing to do with the wedding industry. This has nothing to do with wedding planning. Rather, try and exercise some creativity and then see how, even though the specific examples you might be using in the book might be coming from a business to business context, insurance, banking, whatever, or industrial sales, just try and suss out the principles that he's talking about and see how they can apply to the wedding industry in general and to your particular service in particular. So it's not just how does this apply to the wedding industry, but how can a wedding photographer use this? How can a wedding planner use this? How can a cake artist use this, or a makeup artist? How can we use this information? And that's pretty much what we do on the podcast. We take all these general principles, which usually come from other disciplines and other aspects in business, and then we find ways that they can be tweaked and applied to those of us in the wedding and event industry space. So that's it pretty much today for today's episode. That's my recommendation. For some reason, some folks have rediscovered this book, and it would be an absolute treasure for you guys to discover as well. So thank you very much for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer, Tavishima Ayede. Thanks for your time and attention, and always remember that the sales conversation has to be question-led. It is not a talking or toasting led process. So you don't need sheer talent for this. If you have sheer talent, if you have sheer good looks and you're outgoing, it's not going to hurt. But just remember, it's all about acquiring learnable skills. So long as we're focusing on the questions and we're learning the frameworks every day and how to adapt them to our own situation, we should be fine over the long term. So thank you very much, guys, for listening. I'll catch you at the next recording.